Right, at the age of 16, before finding fame in Corrie, Adam Rickitt was struck down with a virus that left him depressed. Feeling helpless, Adam began to binge eat and then make himself sick up to 30 times a day.
Well, around 1.6 million people in the UK are affected by eating disorders, and 11% of those are men. So speaking out in our Celebrity Surgery today, Adam joins us now along with Dr. Chris, and thank you for doing this.
Oh, that's right. Morning.
So 1994, you're 16.
Yes.
And it really started with a rugby match.
Yeah, I was at one of these very archaic all-boys schools where, you know, the rugby players were the gods. So from the age of 13, all I wanted to be was a rugby player, and on the first 15, you know, all my friends were playing for England, and I was a fifth-generation Rickitt there. So there was all these kind of like ancestral pressures to be, you know, the golden boy at school. And it was during a rugby match I dislocated both my shoulders. And while I was in hospital having them pinned, I picked up a virus which basically made me lose weight. And yeah, and so it meant I couldn't play rugby again.
So you're back in your room,
yeah,
and you say suddenly the one thing that, and you were very good at it, that you can't do.
Yeah,
they're all out playing rugby.
That's the thing. You're at a
own.
school where there was, you know, 500 boys, and it's something, you know, which looks similar to the, you know, Westminster Palace or something like that, and they're all gone. They're all out playing X, and you're the one person in this entire boarding house. It was like a ghost town almost.
But actually, it was a whole lot more than that, because I think around that age you just thought that probably that was the trigger and that was the reason.
Yeah,
but it went far deeper than that.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's something I came to realise, that, you know, I almost blamed this rugby situation for making me believe. It was nothing to do with that. It was a deeper rooted thing whereby I didn't know myself. I didn't know who I was. I didn't fit in. All I knew was that I was being forced into this mould of what I should be, which was, you know, the rugby player, the going to Cambridge, becoming a lawyer, having 2.4 children and playing golf at 50. You know, and I was just like, that's not who I am, that's not what I want to be. I was so scared and I didn't know who I was that I fixated on, instead of being this rugby playing sort of Adonis thing, whatever. And when that was taken away, I was just completely empty.
Now
I didn't know what to do.
So how did that affect your eating then?
What it was because I'd lost so much weight through the virus. I was having to eat a lot to get my weight back up, and it was literally one day I was sat there and I'd been and got a huge bowl of Frosties cereal from the kitchen downstairs, and I was just eating. And I was so focused on the eating, I was just literally wasn't thinking about anything. I was just eating and eating and eating, and I stood up, and I'd eaten so much I was physically sick. And I didn't mean to be, but I was just physically sick. And I looked at my watch and I was like, you know, I just wasted an hour and a half. And for an hour and a half, I didn't have to think. And to me, that was salvation, because up to then, everything was so chaotic and so depressed in my mind. To have a release where I could focus on something and not think was amazing. So I did it straight away again.
And it's important to say at this point that this view was not about body image. This wasn't about losing weight.
This is my thing.
Did happen because you're making yourself sick so many times a day.
I got down to, you know, 6 or 7 stone, and, you know, I looked horrific. But to me, this is one of the things I'm trying to get people to realise with some of the work I do, is that eating disorders are exactly the same as mental health, any other mental health issue. Same as drug addiction, same as, you know, alcoholism. It's where you focus your problems on one subject. Now, people hold up magazines and they blame, you know, the media for portraying skinny women or muscly men. Yes, those are the triggers, but when people have an eating disorder, it's because something more deep-rooted.
Yeah.
Why don't they love themselves? Why don't they like themselves? And what they do instead is they focus on something. Right, I'm going to focus on my image. If I can make my image perfect, if I can get as skinny as I can or as muscly as I can, then maybe people will like me. If they like me, it doesn't matter that I don't like myself.
If drink or drugs had been available,
I'd have had them.
You'd have taken another
If drugs
track.
and drinks had been there, I would have had them. But as I said, I was at a boarding school up in the Lake District. There was none of that available.
So you've lost a lot of weight. You were very skinny. You're wearing baggy jumpers. You're hiding it. You're making yourself sick. You're physically injuring yourself. To make yourself sick, you're injuring your knuckles.
My knuckles, I'm throwing up blood continuously every day.
So who did you tell?
Nobody. You know, it was, to me, the problem was it had never happened. You know, the school had been there since 1800s, and they'd never had a case of a boy having an eating disorder. And, you know, all my friends, the worst thing is I knew everybody knew. You know, I looked different, I was acting different because I was hiding things, I was running away at the end of lessons so I wouldn't have to be around people. And it was all because I wanted to go and binge and purge. I knew that my parents knew. I knew that my friends and my family.
You think your parents knew?
I knew everybody knew.
But just didn't know how to deal with it.
Didn't know how to deal with it, and that was the worst thing for me. First of all, I was so embarrassed to say anything, and second of all, I desperately wanted them to help me, but I didn't want to have them help me. You know, I was so embarrassed. I think I've got to do this myself. You know, and I just was always scared nobody else understood. you know, they'd condemn me for being vain because they'd think, oh, it's because he wants to be good looking,
Yeah.
and it had nothing to do with it, you know.
And things got so bad that you did have suicidal thoughts.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I would go to bed each night praying not to wake up. I could never kill myself because I knew my mum knew that I was bulimic, and I knew that if I killed myself, my mum would blame herself for not doing something. And she didn't know what she could do, but I knew that she'd blame herself. So that's the only thing that actually stopped me killing myself. But I went to bed every night praying not to wake up the next day.
And also you were permanently cold.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. It's you know, it's one of the side effects people don't realise. Your body fat is so low. In the height of summer, I'd be wearing scarves and 3 or 4 jumpers. And I was, you know, every time I stood up, my blood pressure was so low, I was passing out. I was throwing up blood. I was hiding my hands because they were scarred.
Yeah.